Awesome. This is my official welcome. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. This is webinar 2 of an 8-week series which promises to be life-changing if you participate and if you bring your best. I know that we certainly bring our best. We've got great guests who are going to join us shortly, and you're in for another great webinar. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for choosing to be with us this morning. And again, thank you for taking interest and taking action and taking control of your financial life, because that's what this program is about. This is the L+earn financial literacy program for young adults, developed and designed and engineered for you. It's all about you, to get you to make a better to build a better financial life and make better financial decisions. And so today's webinar is all about saving and investing, and it promises to be an amazing one. As always, I'm not alone. I've got a very competent team in the background running this webinar with me as well. So thank you to Crystal, who is managing the chat. If you have any issues throughout the webinar this morning, pop your messages in the chat. Crystal will help you out there. And we also have some great guests this morning, and so I'm going to quickly invite them to switch their cameras on and just greet us. I will introduce them formally a little bit later on, but if we can get Zwanda and Tsungai, if both of you could quickly just switch your camera on, give us a wave. All right, so that's Zwanda and Tsungai. They're our special guests today. They're going to be part of the panel, and I can assure you guys, when we met earlier this week just to prepare, I was already blown away by what these ladies are about to share. And so I can assure you that you are going to learn so much this morning. Thanks, ladies. You can put your video off and we'll catch up with you a little bit later on during the webinar this morning. Before we get into today's content, a quick reminder that the L+earn Moodle platform is really designed to extend the discussion after this webinar. So there's so much that we are trying to squeeze into this 1 hour, but we don't have enough time. And so that's the reason why this platform was created, to really extend the discussion. And so register, use it weekly after the webinars to access resources, participate in the forums and the quizzes, earn yourself some badges and stand in line to win weekly prizes, all right? Check your mailbox for your login details. And check your junk mail as well, because sometimes it might go into your spam folder or your junk mail. And remember, the hashtag is secure the bag. Visit www.l+earn.co.za. The address is up on the screen, and then you'll be able to connect on the Moodle platform. If you have any questions or you haven't received your login details, email crystal@groundedmedia.co.za. Crystal, if you would type your email address in the chat, just so that if anybody does have any issues, they can email you as well. All right, before we get into the content, we have some winners from week 1. And so guys, if you haven't registered on Moodle, if you're not participating on Moodle, you are literally leaving money on the table. All right, and so our winners from week 1, the first person who finished registration and earned a badge is Botomio from Durban University of Technology. Well done to you. So you're our first winner and you're getting the first prize. And then the second one was the most interactive person for the week on Moodle, and that was Manda from Nelson Mandela University, who was also very interactive in the webinar last week. So well done, guys. You guys are the prize winners based on your Moodle activity this week. And so guys, stay tuned, because we will announce more winners from today's webinar at the end. Remember last week, so every week we hand out about 2 spot prizes, and that's really just for your participation and for being engaged in this webinar. But stay tuned until the end. I promise you it's going to be absolutely worthwhile, and there are some amazing prizes to be won. Then a quick roadmap of where we are and where we're going. Today is webinar 2 already, and so we started last week with budgeting. Today we're talking saving and investing, and then next week we're going to continue the discussion on investing before we start going into topics like credit, work readiness, finance and mental health, entrepreneurship, and we end off with hustle in week 8, which is towards the end of November. Make sure that you attend all the webinars and also continue the journey on Moodle. Let's get straight into today's content, which is saving and investing. Guys, and so it's so important. Last week, we started with budgeting. And remember, we spoke about the fact that savings needs to be part of your budget. You can't not save, all right? And so today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into discovering what is the difference between saving and investing, because we hear those terms all the time, and sometimes we may not understand exactly what the difference is. And so when you think savings, you want to think near future. All right, because savings is an act of delaying immediate spending until you have enough to spend on something worthwhile in the future, and that's the near future. Investment is normally for a longer period, and investment is about saving towards a short-term goal or a medium to long-term goal. Sorry, not short-term, more medium to long-term goal. All right. Also, investing is about using your money to start creating wealth. And so there's a difference between saving and investing. So the question that often arises is it better to save or is it better to invest? Or should I save or should I just invest? And the truth is, guys, you need both. All right. You need to save and you need to invest. And so a bank savings account or a money market, that's good enough for you to just save for your short-term goals. And then medium to long-term goals include things like when you need to start saving for a car, or you need to start saving for a home or for education later on. And for that, you need to have a different approach. And so the better approach in that case would be to invest so that your money is able to grow a little bit better than what it would be if you were just saving. So if you think about it, savings is literally just putting money away. But investing is finding a way to make your money grow. And you'll see later on when we get our financial planner on board, she's going to dive quite a lot deeper into it. And we're going to just start understanding this whole world a lot better. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat as well as we continue. When it comes to investing, investing is, so for instance, to buy financial assets and put money in financial instruments for a specific time period in order to make more money and grow your wealth, all right? So that is the essence of investing. And the thing about investing is that it only works for you if you leave your money invested for a reasonable period of time, all right? And so you have to be prepared to put that money away and almost sit back and wait for it to grow, because that's how you will see the benefit of investing. But that's what investing is. And there are a couple of different financial instruments for investing. And those assets include things like shares, property, bonds, and cash. And so we're going to get into that. I'm not going to go into depth with what all of these instruments are. I'm really going to just touch the surface, and then we're going to get Tsungai on a little bit later on, and she's going to dive much deeper, and we'll actually be able to answer some of your questions about some of these financial instruments. All right. And so as I go through them quite quickly, I want you to maybe make down some notes if you have questions about any of these specific investment vehicles, and we'll get our financial planner to elaborate on that a little bit later. So the first one that I want to talk about is shares. Shares is also called equity or stocks. And if you buy shares, what you're doing in essence is that you are buying a portion of ownership in a company, all right? And so you can look and you can see which companies are really doing well, and you have the opportunity to basically buy into that company, all right? You're buying a portion of ownership. And so what happens is you share in the company's profits and losses, all right? But it's a great way for you to start investing and growing your wealth. The next one is bonds. And so bonds in essence is a financial tool that is used by governments or municipalities and state-owned enterprises to borrow money from investors. And so when we buy a bond, they in essence give a loan to the organization, and the organization that's issuing the bond, and then they repay the loan with interest. And so that's how you start making money, by investing in that bond. And again, Tsungai will elaborate on it a little bit more when we get to her discussion later on. Then, of course, the next one to start thinking about in the future is property. And so you can invest in property. That's another form of investment and growing your wealth. And you could do this in a couple of different ways. You could possibly buy a property to let, where you now become a landlord. You find tenants who pay you a rental income, and that's a way of you generating more money, first of all, but also increasing your wealth. And then you could also invest in property by putting some money in a property fund or a real estate investment trust. And these are often referred to as like combined schemes as well. So those are also opportunities where you can invest in property. Next up is cash. And so investing in cash could mean investing in high interest accounts, such as a fixed deposit at the bank or a money market account. But cash is usually lower risk and lower return, all right? And it's generally not suitable for long-term investing. And so you need to be when it comes to investing and saving, it really is about making the informed decisions. And you'll see the ladies later on will talk to us about how we need to almost understand why it is that we're investing and what the end goal is, so that we make an informed decision in terms of building our wealth. And then very important, guys, is for us to remember that we need to diversify. All right. So we need to be able to diversify our investments so that we don't just put all of our eggs into one basket. And so one way of to start diversifying and investing in the various asset classes is through unit trust. And you know, I feel like I'm actually going to mess this up if I talk about unit trust, because it is really one of the, it's such a phenomenal way to start investing and to start diversifying your investments. And so Tungai is going to elaborate on this. She's got a beautiful way of how she explains it. And so I'm going to leave this for her. I've got a question that I'm going to ask her about unit trust and how it works and how we can use it to grow our wealth. And so we're going to talk about it when Tungai comes on board in just a moment. And then how does your investment grow? She's going to talk about capital gains. We're going to talk about dividends, and we're going to talk about interest, because obviously everybody wants to know, all right, so what is the right way to go? How much interest can I earn? And so she's going to give us some practical examples as well in terms of how unit trusts can grow our portfolio. And then another great vehicle or tool that we can use to invest is exchange traded funds, or ETFs as they're called. And this in essence is a basket of shares where you are able to invest in a number of shares by basically purchasing a single share. All right. And so you're giving this money to somebody. Your money is then pooled with other investors, and that's how you start investing and start earning from this investment. And it's something beautiful that Tungai is going to explain as well. Then very, very important is that we need to invest for retirement as well, guys. And so financial planners recommend that we should be saving 15% of our salary towards retirement. All right. So once you start getting into the world of work, once you start getting that first job, right away, you need to start saving for retirement, because the earlier you start, the more benefit you have. If you start saving at 40, right away, you need to save 33% of your salary instead of 15%. And so it's all about time. It's all about starting early. It's all about starting, and it allows you to start smaller, because the longer you leave it, the higher you're going to have to pay, or the higher premiums you're going to have to pay, the more you're going to have to invest. And so you're going to be dipping into much more of your money that you could be using to live on a monthly basis. And so start soon, start small, and then very important, especially once you start getting into the world of work, is that things are going to happen. So your life is going to change, and you're going to experience different seasons. You're going to be changing employers. You're going to be changing jobs. You're going to experience retrenchment, and you're going to experience moving jobs. But it's so, so important to preserve your retirement savings. And so a lot of people make the mistake of cashing in pensions, cashing in provident funds when they change jobs. And so it's so, so important to preserve that, so that when you get to retirement age, you've got money available for retirement. And then, with all of this being said, we need to be mindful of scams, okay? And so we need to know how to identify scams, and we need to safeguard ourselves, because in the times that we're living, where money is so hard to come by, often we fall victim to scams because we are not informed. And that's why we host these programs. That's why we have programs like these, to empower us and to make sure that we are we don't fall victims to these scams. And so how do you identify a scam? Firstly, if you've been promised a lot of money in a short space of time, that's one of them. If you need to get other people to invest, there's another example. Or you have no knowledge of where the money is invested. All right, there's no transparency. They just say, bring 500, we're going to give you 1,500 by tomorrow. That's a red flag. Fake websites. Okay, so be careful of sites that look similar to those well-known investment companies or banks, but they could be fraudulent. And then do not share personal information. So, so important. You know, these days you get those emails saying your grandfather that you don't know left you some money. Scam, okay? Or I think one of the better ones these days is everybody's invited to tender, and they tell you we're looking for masks. Watch out for those, because that's how we fall victim to scams. And so I know that Tsungai is going to touch on it as well, just in terms of how we are able to identify scams. Just another reminder, and this reminder is for everybody, please remember to join on the Moodle platform. That's a great way for you to continue the discussions after the webinar. It's a great way for you to interact. There's so much information, there's great resources, there's forums and quizzes, and of course incentives. And so please make sure that you register on Moodle, experience it, participate there. There's a wealth of information available on the Moodle platform. So go to www.L+earn.co.za, register for Moodle, and we will be monitoring you there. Also, that's how you will receive the data for participating in the weekly webinars. All right, and so without any further delay, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome our first guest today. Her name is Zwanda Nana Rasiwela, and she's all the way from Vuwani in Limpopo and has a BSc in mining engineering from Wits University. She's been employed for 4 years and is currently working as an aftermarket solution consultant in a heavy equipment industry. Sounds interesting, eh? Zwanda loves traveling, and through her work, she has visited more than 15 countries, including France, Germany, Switzerland, China, the USA, Zambia, and Mozambique, and she briefly lived in Singapore as well. As a financial enthusiast, she shares her personal savings and investment journey on her YouTube channel, which is called Zwanda Nana, which focuses on money management and aims to inspire financial independence in young adults. Outside of work, she enjoys reading books on personal, financial, and psychological development. Zwanda, welcome. Thank you so much for giving up your time. We are so excited to have you on the webinar this morning.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for having me.
First question to you is, how has it impacted your travels with having to be locked down for almost 2 years now?
I definitely do miss traveling, but I think it was an opportunity for me to actually explore local travels. So yeah, with the little that I can do around South Africa, I'm getting to learn that there's a lot.
Awesome. Let's get into the discussion. And I'd like for you to start off by telling us a little bit about your savings and investment journey. What encouraged you to start investing?
I think my journey, my saving and investment journey started with me learning the discipline of money, which I believe that it's at the core of every successful investment story or successful saving story. So from grade 1 to grade 12, my parents used to give me weekly pocket money. And that was really challenging for me because as young as I was very excited about having that money in my disposal to spend at any time that I wanted. So I used to spend most of that money before Wednesday, right? And I would suffer the consequences by going to work, by going to school on Thursdays and Friday without having pocket money. But ultimately, like I said, that kind of taught me the repercussions of not thinking about tomorrow when you have money today. And if you look at it, it's the same thing that we have today. If you look at young adults, we get excited about getting money and we don't think about the need that we will have tomorrow. And the consequences, unfortunately, of today or of this age is that the consequences are a little bit harsher. If you don't pay for your rent, you will get evicted. And if you use your debt to pay for your rent, ultimately it will catch up with you and you will get into a vicious cycle of debt, using debt to pay more debt. So there are two things that I actually use to stay disciplined in my savings, right? It's my budget. I make sure that I stay within my budget as much as I can. Like Darren said, it's a continuous journey, right? You adjust where you need be, but the budgeting helps me to tell my money where to go. Number 2, it's automating my savings. It's quite difficult to decide every month how much you need to save. Every single month, if you are to decide, that will actually detour you and something will always come up. But if you automate it, understand what percentage you want to save on a monthly basis after doing your budgeting, you would definitely know. You would definitely be at a safe space when you automate it because the money will always go into your account and your savings will be covered, right? Going back to my story, from primary school to high school, the story was a little bit different. I actually knew that if I needed to buy something that my parents wouldn't approve when I was in high school, I knew that I needed to spend less, right? And the principle is still the same today. If I need something which is outside of my budget, I need to kill something which I know I'm willing to sacrifice and buy that thing which I need for now, right? So the time where I started knowing about savings and how different it is from investment was when I was doing my final year. Right, so I had 10,000 Rand, which I'd saved throughout my studies, and I saved it with the bank. I went to the bank and I explored. They told me they have money market, they have 2 days notice, they have fixed deposit. I chose the fixed deposit because, well, they were offering higher interest rate. So I put my 10,000 there. The time in which my money had to mature came, and to my surprise, the money was so little. I could not believe that my money only gained 600 Rand after 12 months, right? Yeah. It was shocking. But that was my time of starting to explore the difference between saving and investing. I had to learn that there are other investment vehicles, such as your government retail bond, your unit trust, your ETFs, your property real estate, right? So I learned about that, and I learned about how I can use them to reach my different goals. So that has been my journey. And I think my greatest motivation to start was the realization that I will always need money, and it's better to be prepared for the time that I will be needing that money.
I love that. And I see that you already started touching on some of the lessons that you learned from this whole experience, but maybe there's 1 or 2 more that you'd like to highlight for us.
Yes. So I have 2 lessons that I've learned, right? Number 1 is that there is a difference between savings and investment. I know that a lot of us use them interchangeably, but it's very important for you to understand how different they are, because savings is not the same as investment. For an example, I had a unit trust in the beginning of my investing journey. I had a unit trust, and during my investment on that unit trust, I needed money and I needed it urgently. Unfortunately, I could not get that money as fast as I needed it because the liquidity of unit trust is very low. You have to wait a certain number of days before you can get the money. So different financial vehicles have different characteristics and are used for different goals. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would say that it's the fact that you need to start early, right? You need to maximize on compound effect, right? The earlier you start, the better, and time is on your side. If you are an investor on shares and they go up and down, you still have time for the market to recover, and you can still get compounding effect as well.
Wow. So in the beginning, you said you literally just started. You started with that 10,000 Rand, you put in the bank, whatever. So since then, have you sought advice from a financial planner? And if so, why? And if you haven't, tell us why not.
So I have given myself time to go to a financial planner and try to understand my finances as a whole. I think the reason why I went was because when I got my permanent job, they asked me, what percentage of your provident fund do you want to contribute, right? So I really didn't know the factors which influence a person to be retired well. So I needed to understand just on my retirement planning. So I did that, and it was really beneficial. And I think the greatest thing was that not only did I start understanding my retirement plan, I also understood how I'm going to achieve my short-term and long-term goal. So yes, I have, and I really benefited a lot from the experience.
Great. So here's a great question that's come through via the chat. It's from Kopano, and it says, what tips would you give someone who is about to invest their money for the first time?
So I would say that it's better to invest on something that you know. It's always good to invest on something that you know. So ask questions and understand that, it doesn't matter how much you start with. Investing and saving has little to do with money and a lot to do with allowing yourself the flexibility and the ability of choices, right? So you need to start, and you need to start with something that you know. And I'll say the first place to start is budgeting. Your budget will tell you how much disposable income you have that you can save. And from there, write down your goals, your financial goals, categorize them from short term to long term, and you will be able to understand which one you need to prioritize.
Beautiful. Zwanda, tell us a little bit about your channel. What encouraged you to start your YouTube channel on topics of finances?
So I have a YouTube channel under my name. It's called Zwanda Nana. And I started my YouTube channel because I wanted to encourage young people to have control over their finances, and also to instigate conversations about money management. I think if you look around our community, you will notice that a lot of people spend money in a way that is, not right. And it can be improved. And I think it's because the conversations around money are either too sensitive for people, some find them offensive, but the consequences of that, it's very manifesting in the way in which we behave around money. So I wanted to create an environment where conversation around money it's free and it's allowable, and we make it fashionable. So I wanted us to learn that we can also achieve financial freedom. We can retire early, we can travel, we can take 6 months leave if we want to.
I see the comments in the chat saying, oh, you just gained another subscriber.
Thank you.
It's going crazy in the chat. People absolutely love the content that you're sharing this morning. Some are saying you are so inspiring. Some are saying you're strict with your plans as well, which is great.
Yes.
And some are saying you are so pretty. And so what's a final thought from you, Zwanda, before we say goodbye to you for a moment?
I would say that start early and stick to the plan. That's my final thought. But maybe Darren, let me just detour a little bit. I saw a question which I really like, and I'm just gonna close with that one. So I was asked what book would I recommend, because I actually do read, and I like the idea that someone is interested in reading. There is a book which I received from Easy Equities as a gift. It's called Make Your Money Work for You by Anthea Gardner. So that's the book which I will recommend. And the reason is that that book actually tackles all the financial vehicles and how they behave and the goals in which you can use those financial vehicles. So I think if you're starting, or you're new to investing, or you're planning to expand your investments and to understand investment as an overall portfolio, that's the book in which I would recommend.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much, Zwanda. Don't go away. We're going to say goodbye to you for a moment, but please start thinking about a tip for the week, because at the end of the webinar, I'd like to bring you back just to end off with a tip for the week. But thank you so much. I think we've gained so much knowledge just from your journey and the information that you shared. I personally have learned a lot from you already. And so we'll catch up with you later.
Thank you.
That was Zwanda Nana. Wasn't she just absolutely awesome? Next up, we have our financial planner, who is Tsungai Masendeke, and she is just a ball of energy. Tsungai is a certified financial planner and wealth coach. She believes financial literacy is the key to fostering financial inclusion. Besides working as a speaker and a panelist, Tsungai runs her own investment company and a financial planning practice. She's a proud mother of 2 beautiful daughters and enjoys cooking and hosting guests when she's not looking for opportunities to invest on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Tsungai is also the founder of Moms and Money, a woman empowerment initiative designed to help moms with tools, resources, and strategies they need to create multiple streams of income with the aim of leaving a sustainable wealth legacy. Tsungai, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Darren, and good morning to the people in Limpopo, Cape Town, Johannesburg, and all over South Africa.
You're making enemies because you're not mentioning all the cities around the country. But anyway, it's great to have you on the webinar this morning, and I know we're going to learn so much from you.
Thank you, Darren, for having me.
Let's get straight into it, Tsungai. So as a young person starting out in investing, what advantages can unit trust funds and ETFs provide? I know I touched on it very little bit because I wanted you to elaborate. So let's start there.
So for me, if you are in the category of investing 101, then your unit trust or your ETF are the primary tools that you want to be using. Now, let me debunk what a unit trust is and an ETF is, so that when you actually start investing in them, you know exactly what you're going into. So for starters, the unit trust basically means you are outsourcing the responsibility of picking shares, or picking property, or picking money market instruments that would work to a fund manager. So you're not actively involved in making investment decisions. The unit trust manager, the fund manager, also known as the investment manager, is the one who goes out, scouts for opportunities, and helps your money work for you. Generally, with the unit trust, what you end up holding is a unit of a bigger fund. So under no circumstances will you ever own the shares, will you ever own the properties that are held in the fund. What you have are units in the fund. Now, why are unit trusts great? They're great, like I said, because you're outsourcing expertise, right? You're outsourcing competent individuals whose daily bread is stock picking, property picking, bond picking. That's what they do for a living. So you're outsourcing the responsibility of investing and making money to the experts, which are the fund managers. Another great thing about unit trusts is they're extremely flexible, so you can access your funds at any point in time, obviously within the limits, which could be 3 to 5 working days. And you've got the opportunity to actually increase or decrease what you're saving based on your affordability. Now, with an exchange traded fund, I would say they mirror a basket of goods, commodities, equities, bonds, or even properties. And because they're mimicking, there is no active involvement in the decision-making process. So ETFs are normally called trackers or passive investments, because basically what you're doing is, if the JSE top 40 index goes up, the ETF goes up. If it goes down, your ETF goes down. There's no active participation. It is extremely passive. It's just mimicking. It's a copycat. So if there's a copycat that wins, this is the ETF, not the ones where they would copy people's homework and they'd get 5 out of 10. The ETF copies, it mimics a stock index, it mimics a bond index, it will mimic a commodities index. So it's very passive in nature. And it's the best way to start, because all you do is you automate, like Zwanda said, and let the market do what it does best.
I love it. So the next question is, so a lot of people may want to start investing but feel that they don't have money to save and invest. And I think somebody else earlier on was saying, how do I do that if I can't even pay rent yet? All right, what can one do to get extra money for investing?
I love it, Darren, because I'm the money mama and I always talk about multiple streams of income. And I will take our audience back to when I was a graduate. Guys, the best times to make the most money is when you're a graduate, because you've got very few responsibilities. You're not buying diapers, you're not buying formula. All the money you make comes back to you. Now, when I was a student, I was very woke, right? I always was on the lookout for opportunities for me to make an extra buck. I remember when I bought my first car, I used to commute to the airport and back, taking students at the end of the semester to the airport and back, to the train station and back, to the bus station and back. That was an opportunity I identified. The other thing I'll do is I would tutor. If you've got an above average EQ, put in your application and start tutoring. At the beginning of the year, when they needed data capturers, for sure, I was there. When they needed a librarian, I was there. When they needed hostel facilitators or rest facilitators, I was there. At some point, I was even waitressing at the local restaurant, right? So there is opportunity. The question is, how hungry are you? How hungry are you to become the next millionaire, to become the next 6-figure female, to become the next 6-figure male? So there are opportunities out there. You just have to be cognizant of what those opportunities are, what would work best for you, and plug in. Guys, your best times are your varsity times.
Kensani says, Tsungai literally came up with the Uber concept before it was even Uber. Oh, I love that. Tsungai, so we know that obviously now when it comes to investing, times change, seasons change. And so how do we beat the effects of inflation when it comes to investing?
Brilliant question, hey? So just to give our audience an understanding of what inflation is Inflation is the sustained increase in the cost of living. So if last year with 100 Rand, you could buy 10 cans of beans, inflation means today with the same 100 Rand, you can no longer afford the 10, maybe you can now only afford 8 tins of beans. Now you want to be investing because investing allows you to make more than the inflation rate. Currently, inflation is between 4 and 5%. So ideally, if you've got money sitting in an investment, the basic minimum is you need to be making at least 5%. If you're not, it's a hobby, it's an entertainment that you're doing, it's a feel-good activity because it's not helping your bottom line. In fact, you're becoming poorer on paper, right? If you ever take out that money and inflation is 5% and that banking product is giving you 2%, guess what? You're technically poorer at the end of the investment period than you were at the beginning. So you want to make sure that you are assessing your investment returns, you're monitoring them so that at the end of the day, you are not being taken for a ride by inflation. Inflation is bad for you, whether it's today, tomorrow, in the future. It is your enemy, and act like a wise person. Invest to beat inflation.
Okay, so how can we learn, or how can we earn, the full benefit of compounding growth when investing?
So Darren, the secret is in being invested in the market for a long period of time. So it's a concept of time in the market, not timing the market. So people are like, yeah, should I go in now? Is it a great time? Should I disinvest now? Is it a great time? And I'm not a financial sangoma winner. I don't know. Is it a good time? Is it a bad time? But the principle I know, Darren, is that if you're in the market long enough, you will smile for days. Your bank account will thank you. Your pockets will thank you because it's about being invested for a long time in the market. And Zwanda actually said it. Start early, guys. Start early. I recently wrote a book on financial independence and retiring early. And one of the things I picked up while I was investigating on the opportunities for benefiting from compound interest is that when you start early, you do well for yourself. At around the sweet spot of 11 to 15 years, if you have been consistent, your investment returns start to grow much faster than the rate at which you're putting in money. So if you are putting 1,000 Rand every single month into your investment, you'll find that at around 10 to 15 years or 11 to 15 years, depending on the investment returns, whatever growth you're earning, they will start being more than the 12,000 you're putting into the investment every single year. So I cannot overemphasize, if you are young, utilize this opportunity, because if you start at 25, by 35, 40, the benefits of compound interest will actually start being material in your own investment journey. So start early, do not defer it. And even if it means investing just 500 Rand a month, start and be consistent. And you know what? I always say compounding is like having little minions, little soldiers that go out. If they like you and you're doing well, they'll come and bring more. No sick leave, no leave days, working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and they will make you extremely rich.
Wow, love it, love it. I want to quickly deviate and go to a comment because Siba Balwe was talking about how she was making money, because I think she was just talking about your example, and she says, I like how you made extra cash, Tungai. You know what? I make mine by participating in competitions. I've just participated in the 8th Continental Essay Competition hosted by ASO, and I won a lot of money, which I've invested so that I can be able to pay for my honors registration fee. Well done, Siba Balwe. That's absolutely amazing.
Wow.
Tungai, let's
That
move
is
on.
brilliant.
Earlier on, we touched on retirement, and I gave the example of how if you started younger, you could start investing less. But maybe just elaborate for us, why is it important to start saving for retirement from an early age?
So let me start with a shocking statistic, Darren, that only 6 out of 100 South Africans right now get to retire comfortably. Now, you can either be one of the 6 or you're going to be in the 94 out of every 100. And this is a shocking statistic given the good quality wages that are provided for here in South Africa. Now, the problem is people, think that retirement is something that's going to happen way in the future. They defer it and they're losing out on time, which gives them the benefit of compounding interest. So you want to start as early as possible. Guys, retirement planning is probably one of the most tax efficient opportunities you also have in South Africa. When you retire, you obviously want to make sure you've got an appropriate nest egg, but you're asking yourself, okay, what's in it for me now? I'm young, I want to enjoy myself. Why should I be putting money for when I'm 55 if I need to go to Italy now? And I always say, when you use a retirement annuity to save towards retirement, the contributions you make towards your retirement are actually tax deductible. Meaning, if you contribute 12,000 towards your retirement annuity, you actually get to reduce your annual taxable income by that 12,000. Now, if there is a quick and easy ticket to take you to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, it is definitely the retirement annuity. And you want to be using it smartly, of course, so that you get that tax back, you get that rebate, you get that 30 check at the end of each year, and voila, I'm on a one-way trip to Maldives.
Wow. You've touched on so much. Let's talk a little bit about tax. So how does tax impact me when investing, and how can I minimize the tax impact?
Awesome. So when you invest, there are primarily three types of taxes that you should be mindful of. There's one called income tax, right? And you're going to be charged income tax on any interest you earn on your investment. Now, the good news, don't we all love free things? SARS is nice to us, and it says, if you earn 23,800 every single year as interest, it's free of tax, right? So there's a freebie for all those people that love free things. If you invest, you make interest less than 23,800, then you're not going to be charged any income tax on the interest earned. The second type of tax that you might be susceptible to is dividends tax. Now, when you invest in a company, there's what we call dividends withholding tax, and it's a 20% of the dividend that's declared. Now, for those that don't know what a dividend is, when a company is profitable and they want to share with shareholders in that profitability, they will actually declare a dividend. Now, that dividend withholding tax is held at the point of declaration. So the company declaring the dividend withholds that 20% and pays it on your behalf to SARS, because they know if they pay it to you and then you need to declare it to SARS, there might be stories in between. So dividend withholding tax is held immediately at the point of declaration. So the money you then earn or that gets paid into your bank account as the dividend is already free of tax. Then the last type of tax is what we call capital gains tax. And capital gains tax is incurred as a result of an increase in the capital valuation of an asset. Now, you're screaming, you're like, oh my God, what does that mean to the layman? If you buy a stock for 100 Rand today, and after 3 years of holding it, it's now worth 200 Rand, then that increase in the 100 Rand is what we call the capital gain. The asset has appreciated by 100 Rand. So at the end of the day, you will be charged tax on the additional 100 Rand you've made. There is a complex calculation for capital gains, so you ought to reach out to a certified financial planner like myself or to a tax practitioner to help make sure that you are in the right lane where it pertains to the payment of your capital gains tax.
So, Guy, you've given us so much. I wish we could talk to you all day, but we have run out of time. But I want you to maybe just think about your tip for the week for later on. But before you go, I want to see if I can maybe get through at least one or two questions from some of the attendees today. And so one of the questions is a great one from Kiabetsu, and it says, what about stokvels? Is that a good way of saving if you want to use maybe to buy something like furniture or build a house? What's your thoughts on that?
Stokvels are fantastic, right? But I feel stokvels are like the stone age of investing, because when you invest in stokvels, what you're doing really is all about capital preservation. Unless your stokvel has evolved to the point where you're now buying assets like property, or you're investing in capital projects like building schools or clinics, then absolutely, all right? But if your stokvel is the one where at the end of the year, you just buy groceries, dombazana, flee, because there's just so much cooking oil you need in a year. There's just so much toilet paper you need in a year. And I feel sometimes those kind of stokvels that are consumptive in nature are really there to while up time. Because at the end of the day, all you're doing is increasing your consumption, and you're not involved in the production. You're not involved in the basic production of goods or in injecting profitability into the economy. So unless your stokvel is a vehicle that allows you to gain in terms of profits or returns, then it might not be worthwhile. It might not be worthwhile at all.
Lovely. Tsungai, thank you so much. We're going to get you back at the end, but you've given us so much to think about. A couple of comments coming through saying, oh, it's the energy for me. Someone saying they're learning so much. And so thank you so much. We're going to catch up with you shortly, Tsungai.
Thank you, Darren.
Guys, well, what do you think about that? Wasn't that just absolutely amazing? Another reminder, a lot of this information is available on the L+earn website. So please, please, please register on Moodle and also go directly to the website www.l+earn.co.za. There is so much of this information on that website, and you'll be able to really, really tap into it. You'll be able to go over this information when you've got time to just really digest it a bit better than what you may be able to do right now. Grace says, can't we extend this session? 1 hour is not enough. I agree with you, Grace. I think we're learning so much. It really, and time just flies by, but beautiful comment. Thank you for your comment there, Grace. Dineo says, thank you. I'm learning a lot. Sitosa says, it was very informative. Thank you. Amazing content. Learned a lot. Save our wire, Baba. That's from Tando. Thank you so much, Tando. Caleb saying today was informative. Thankful for all the valuable information and advice. Great stuff. Q saying thank you. This was very helpful. The session was amazing, says Charles. This was great. I learned a lot. All right, guys, I'm going to do one more question. So, Guy, if you'd put your video back on for us. I've just got a great question that I thought you could answer really well for us, if you don't mind. So Tsungai, the question here is, where is that question? Oh, can you invest on a monthly basis as well? And how do you start? What would be a great starting point?
All right, fantastic. So if you want to invest on a monthly basis, as Wanda has already said, automate the payment of that contribution on a monthly basis. You can either use unit trust, you can either use ETFs, as we've already mentioned, and I would be happy to help if anyone wants to start the investment journey. If you're a participant, hear me clearly, if you're a participant today and you've already registered on the portal, then I will waive my fees. I will give you free financial advice so that you can get going. I'm more interested in people getting going and getting started, because that's how we're going to actually change the narrative when it comes to wealth creation.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Okay, ladies, let's go into your tip for the week. So Tsungai, let's start with you. What would be your tip for the week?
So Darren, I'll keep it sweet and simple. It's just start. You've heard everything that's been said here. What are you going to do differently? What one thing are you going to implement in the next 7 days? And always be mindful. What legacy are you going to be remembered for? What will the future generations know you to have contributed? So if you want that, better start today, better start now.
I thought you said you were going to keep it short. Beautiful.
I changed my mind. I changed my mind.
Love it. Thank you so much. And once again, thank you so much for being here today and really for pouring your absolute best. I think all of us on the webinar today could sense just how invested you are in all of us becoming better and making better financial decisions. So thank you so much to you, Tsungai. Zwanda, your tip for the week?
So my tip for the week would be around numbers, because I noticed that a lot of people who are in here are students, so probably do understand the numbers, right? So I just want to give you a thought on the tax-free savings account and how much you can make if you are to maximize your tax-free account. Tsungai did mention that a tax-free savings account is an account where you don't get taxed on your dividends, you don't get taxed on your interest rate, you also don't get taxed on your capital gains, which is amazing, right? So if you are to invest on a tax-free savings account and you maximize it and contribute 36,000 in a year, you only need 13.8 years for you to get to the maximum, which is 500,000 in a lifetime, right? And when you reach that 13.8 years and maximize your lifetime investment limit of 500,000, you would have gained an interest rate of 306,000. Wow. Imagine, like if you're in your 20s and you do have a source of income that will allow you to actually deposit 3,000 per month, and which is ultimately 36,000 in a year, 13.8 years from now, you would have 806,000. So that is the thought for the week. So think about it. And if you have that chance, try to maximize on your tax-free savings account.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Zwanda. And again, we absolutely salute you for sharing your journey. It's been so great getting some insight into just your world, and back. You know, so often people don't like to share how they make their money, and you've really been willing to open up and to give us some insight into you. And even just the practical example you gave shows that you are so committed to what it is that you do. So thank you very much. Guys, activities for the week. Log on to the L+earn Moodle platform, register and download the resources. A lot of this information is available on the website. There's quizzes, there's forums, and you can win prizes. And so talking about prizes, let's give some prizes for today's winners. All right, and so ready, drum rolls and snaps and all of that. So today's winners, let me see, Daphne hasn't told me what you guys are winning. Oh, it's a voucher. It's 300 Rand voucher from Checkers. All right, so we are giving you a 300 Rand voucher from Checkers so that you can take your 300 Rand you would have spent on groceries and put it in unit trust or one of those vehicles that Tsungai and Zwanda have spoken about today. So our 4 winners for today, each receiving a 300 Rand grocery voucher from Checkers, is first one is Murendeni. So Murendeni, you're the first winner. Snaps for you. Well done, Murendeni. Next up is Kiabetswe. So Kiabetswe, you get a 300 Rand voucher from Checkers. Next up is Kubongiwe. So Kubongiwe, you're the 3rd winner of a 300 Rand voucher. And last but certainly not least is me. I'm joking. Kensani, you're the 4th winner. So Kensani, well done to you. So those are our 4 winners. You will be receiving a 300 Rand Checkers voucher. That's Murendeni, Kiabetswe, Kubongiwe, and Kensani. Well done to all of you. Thank you for your participation in today's webinar. Guys, that brings us to the end of today's webinar, and it has been an absolutely amazing one. I'm sure you would agree with me. And so please don't forget to join us next week. And so next week, remember, before I talk about next week, so remember that all of you will receive data for participating in this webinar, all right? We get your contacts through and your network type from your Moodle registration. So if you haven't registered on Moodle, you won't be receiving the data. So please make sure that you register there so that we can see we get your cell number there and we know which network you're on, and that's how you will receive data for participating in this webinar. Then join us next week as we take this discussion further. We're going to talk more on investing. And so next week, we're going to look, it's going to be called Investing Part 2. And we're going to be taking a look at cryptocurrencies, which is one of these buzzwords we all hear these days. We're going to be talking about online trading, which is what some of the questions that some of you asked today. And we're going to talk about some key investing fundamentals and also the role of a financial planner so that you're able to make an informed decision when you start approaching a financial planner on who is the right one for you. How do you choose a financial planner? And so, as always, it promises to be extremely informative, very empowering, and of course, inspiring too. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to register on Moodle. Remember to go to the L+earn website, www.l+earn.co.za. And from my side, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host today. Thank you, Tsungai. Thank you, Zwanda, for joining us. And guys, have a great week. And remember to start saving and start investing. Just start with where you're at. Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next week.